There is only one. In all of American military history, there is only one. Only one helicopter squadron has ever been formed in a combat zone. That Marine squadron was HML-167. Commissioned on Marble Mountain Air Facility in 1968 amid the Vietnam War. At the time, Marine Observation Squadron 2, or VMO-2, was using the Huey helicopter to run recon missions. But those Hueys were being replaced with the turboprop Broncos and the attack helicopter Cobras. So what to do with all those Hueys and trained crewmen? Form a new squadron, Marine Helicopter Light Squadron 167.
About 60% of those Hueys that VMO-2 had were rolled off to 167, along with some of the pilots, some of the crew chiefs, some of the aviation, some of the tin benders, some of the hydraulics guys, to form this new squadron. They also, however, went to other squadrons, 53 squadrons, 46 squadrons, and pulled people from them. So the challenge of Chesty Miller, who was the first CEO, was how do I take this group of very varied Marines with different experiences and bring them together with the camaraderie you need to make it successful.
Not only did Commanding Officer Chesty Miller succeed in pulling this eclectic squadron together, but within a matter of months, HML-167 became one of the premier utility squadrons in Vietnam. They recorded 60,000 flight hours, more than any other squadron, dropped the first helicopter bomb, and ran casualty evacuation missions in landing zones no one dared to enter. Even war reporters steered clear of the harrowing 167 missions.
One night we were up by LZ Baldy. We came across some activity. We took fire, expended all our ammunition, went back to Baldy to refuel and rearm, and we did that twice. The interesting part about that mission was we had Newsweek reporter on board. The last time we went back out to the zone, he refused to get on the aircraft. I was wondering, what did he know that I didn't know?
And so it was for HML-167. They were dubbed the Warriors, and they lived up to their name. Night after night, crews would fly into the jungles of Vietnam to support the infantrymen warring against communist forces. Their motto became, "Have guns, will travel." Every Marine knew if they called upon 167, they would come.
We became the squadron to be assigned to because of our reputation, our ability to escort the helicopters in the zone and out and safely escort them, and also because of our gun roll. And so we were very reliable, and they knew that they had us when they needed us.
These brave Marines never hesitated to do the job they were commissioned to accomplish. No matter the task, they were willing to risk their lives to save another, but not without great cost. Nancy Gross was just 17 years old when she got the news that her big brother, Bob Castle, her hero, had been shot down on a mission.
Since when we drove into the driveway that day, that something was amiss. I remember walking through the front door, and my mom was obviously full of tears. Apparently I was just minutes past the chaplain arriving with the telegram that he was missing in action. He was shot down in Laos, and they didn't feel there were any survivors.
Later, Nancy would learn that there were survivors. One survivor, co-pilot Larry Parsons. He would describe to her the heroic effort Bob made attempting to safely land the helicopter after being shot, sacrificing himself so that others might live. It was a choice Bob made. He and other Marines made that choice every day in Vietnam. It's a choice Nancy's confident he would make all over again.
He was excited to fly. He was excited to serve his country. He well knew the risks. And like the rest of them that were there, they all knew the risks. It was what they wanted to do. And I think that was pretty much Bob's philosophy. He felt there was a need for him to serve, and he was excited to do it.
33 warriors from 167 would lose their lives fighting for their country in Vietnam. Although they were the newest squadron on Marble Mountain, they were the last to leave in May of 1971. The chopping of their helicopter blades will forever be the soundtrack of the Vietnam War. HML-167 found a home back in the States at the Marine Corps Air Station in New River, North Carolina. Even in peacetime, 167 excelled, becoming the first UH-1N Huey Squadron for the Marine Corps responsible for training and model managing for the Huey. But it's not their training and managing that makes 167 notorious throughout the Marine Corps.
Being a part of 167 is really important, specifically because of the long history and the lineage that this squadron has dating back to Marble Mountain. But I think ultimately is the combat decorations that this unit has achieved over the years serving the Marine Corps in the United States. It stands out within the Marine Corps as a unit that is very combat oriented and combat capable.
167 was combat capable during the invasion of Grenada in 1983. HML-167 began adding the attack helicopter, the AH-1T Cobra, to its arsenal, making it the Marines' first utility and attack squadron. In Grenada, the Hueys were providing communication and command for the ground troops, and the Cobras were providing them gun support. On October 26, 1983, a pair of Cobra pilots, including Captain Tim Howard, were called in by a group of Navy SEALs for gun support.
During one of our passes, we were shot down by anti-aircraft fire from the hillside. We managed to land in a field, a soccer field basically. Jeb, my co-pilot Jeb Siegel, and I fell out. He got out. I had lost my right arm below the elbow, and the bone was sticking out of my right leg about 4 inches. Jeb went away to see if he could get some help or make them divert their fire toward him instead of me. He was subsequently killed, put on the beach for the Americans to find, and that picture was in Time magazine later on that year. Pat Jaguar and Jeff Sharver were in the other Cobra, and they provided suppressive fire while Mel DeMars and Larry King and then Gunny Knighty and then Corporal Gore came in and got me. Finally, it got to the point where the other helicopter that I was talking about who was providing suppressive fire ran out of rounds, and they continued to make runs on the enemy even though they were out of rounds to get them to shoot at them instead of the helicopter I was now in. The helicopter I was now in, the 46, flew me away to safety, and they were shot down and killed.
Though Operation Urgent Fury wrapped up quickly in Grenada, the cost was great, certainly for Pat Jaguar, Jeff Sharver, and Jeb Siegel. They gave their lives for freedom, democracy, and ultimately for their friend. Though Tim is without his right arm as a result of Grenada, it's his friends and fellow Marines that he misses the most.
I'm very proud to have known guys like Pat and Jeb and Jeff. They certainly gave everything they had when somebody asked them to do that. And it's easy to say, it's much more difficult to do. And they were men who gave that last full measure.
That last full measure is what many Marines of 167 have given. Upon returning from Grenada in 1986, HML added an A to their name to officially signify the addition of attack Cobras to their fleet. Since then, HMLA-167 has been able to uphold the fine reputation laid by its forefathers. To this day, its legacy as a mission-centric, high-performing, blue-collar family has endured through the years.
This squadron in and of itself has, I think, more professionalism, has more dedication, and there's just an innate sense of belonging that this squadron is something more than just an average squadron. Out of all the squadrons that I've ever operated in, this squadron by far and away is the best squadron that the Marine Corps ever had.
I think what sets 167 apart from the other squadrons I dealt with while I was in the Marine Corps was expectation of excellence. We never missed a mission. We never missed a flight schedule. We never went home with broken aircraft that we didn't have a plan on what it was going to take to get them back up and running. And when we deployed to other squadrons and reinforced other squadrons, we raised the bar of those squadrons when we got there.
What the reputation of the squadron was amongst all skid squadrons to the West Coast, Okinawa, and even the guys at Mott's 1 who flew with everybody, that it was the squadron to beat, that there was no one better, and the squadron did what we were assigned to do and also went beyond.
But at Camp Pendleton, going through press, I heard that there are 2 squadrons on the East Coast, and the one that to be in was HMLA-167. And if I could do anything to get in that squadron, that's what I needed to do.
Yeah, it's a very tight group here at the Warriors. From the bottom to the top, you talk to people and you just see in their eyes that they actually care about you, and everyone is going to go the extra mile to take care of our own. So it is a big family here at the Warriors. It's something very special that you don't find anywhere.
You always want to be part of the best, but not often do you actually get to be part of the best, and here you get to be part of the best. Just the caliber of people that are here, they just constantly trying to make themselves better, even more so than in other units I've seen. And I think it stems from that history and that base of belonging and that family attitude that is put together by the unit.
There's something about this unit that just talks to me about how this unit is on a consistent basis. The way that the young Marines interact with the officers, the way that the officers interact with the young Marines, and how they work together, focused on the mission, but also understanding that there's a different dynamic to their relationship. It's probably the best unit I've been in for the last 21 years in my Marine Corps. There's something about this unit that speaks to people like me that enjoy work, but also like the family environment while they're at work.
What you'll find with this squadron back in Vietnam, in the 80s and the 90s, today and in the future, is the squadron's too focused on the mission to be focused on itself. That is uncommon. If you want a fancy t-shirt or a fancy patch on your flight suit, you go somewhere else. That's not what we have here, and that's not who we are. I just think the squadron has always focused on mission accomplishment, doing its job, and it's never gotten uppity.
Though they certainly enjoy a good reputation, HMLA-167 never rested on their laurels. Whenever and wherever their guns were needed, the Warriors answered the call and traveled to support their fellow Marines.
I hearken back to my time in Beirut. At the time we were there, we had two Huey helicopters, 2 UH-1Ns, and our crew at that time, we flew 62 missions between 2 helicopters. We never dropped a mission through the entire time we were there because of the dedication, the hard work, and the expertise that we had in our crew and our crew chiefs. That stands out in my mind more than any other.
We were in Wisconsin at Vogue Field for cold weather training. Morning before we were supposed to leave, had a combining gearbox go bad in the Huey, so we were going to have to change the engine pack out. The pilots came up to me at noon the day before we were leaving and said, "Hey, Sergeant Linder, if we get an engine pack here tonight, can we leave tomorrow morning?" It normally takes 24 hours to change a pack out in the Huey. I told them yes, if they could get the people out of the field that were out there for the cold weather training in the field, if they got them back there, we could do it. The engines arrived at about 10:30, 11 that night. We got them in the hangar about 11:30, worked all night. We swapped all over and we rolled it out the next morning at 7 o'clock and they tested it, and we packed up and left at 8:30 that next morning. 2 of the pilots came over and said, "We didn't think you guys could do that." And I said, "Sir, if we tell you we can do something, we can do it."
Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait on August the 2nd. On August the 3rd, we became brought onto a safety alert. And by August the 15th, we had transferred all our aircraft and personnel, and we were sitting in Saudi Arabia with the aircraft back together after transporting all the aircraft on C-5s over there and ready to help defend Saudi Arabia from an additional invasion and ready to support that mission.
The draw for Marine Forces was very high at a certain time in the early to mid-90s, and we had 3 deployments out. No one had ever sent 3 deployments out of a HMLA before. And we did that also when there was a DCB-87 out that limited the rotor blades on the Cobras. We did night test operations. We switched out main rotor heads and masts from 269 on our aircraft, tested at night, flew up to Cherry Point, loaded our aircraft, and then offloaded in Florida to fly out to a ship, probably all in a period of 4 days. But we were able to persevere through some unique situations and meet the missions that were assigned.
When I picked up 1st Sergeant, I went to an infantry battalion. In Afghanistan, I was in Marja, and being one of the folks on the ground that they supported, the Hueys and Cobras had such a tenacious reputation that if we were on patrol and they attached Hueys and Cobras to us and they would fly over the top of us, really nothing would happen. and it was because the bad guys knew that, you know, nothing says love like 20 millimeter and rockets. So one of our tactics was we would push them off to the side, and they would actually be off in a different area until we got engaged with the enemy, and then they would come in and do what they do best, which is kill all the bad guys. So we really appreciated that. So when we were in Afghanistan as well, a lot of the Cobra squadrons would actually paint some of the infantry battalion logos on their helicopters. And because there's such close air support, they're not flying up at tens of thousands of feet dropping bomb. They were right there, literally almost on the ground with us. And very unique relationship between the infantry Marines and you know, my grunts used to say they had no better friend than a section of Hueys and Cobras with them. So that was really good, and I got a whole different perspective on aviation being on the ground.
It was the last attack in a sortie where we were supporting Operation Vigilant Resolve, where the contractors had been burned and they had been hung on the bridge outside of Fallujah. So I was a section leader when we were flying over Fallujah. And we had made multiple attack runs, and we made one final attack run because there was a Marine on the ground that had troops in contact. We flew in, I did everything that I thought I should have done. I had a Huey as a wingman. We flew over an area that we had not flown over before. We were maneuvering, and I got hit by an RPG to my main rotor. It bent the strongest part of the rotor. It shook violently, and I thought I was about to crash. My wingman led me home. We executed a crash landing there at the airfield, got out, and all I knew was pilots came up to me and said, hey, get a helmet, get some night vision goggles. We need you to get in this other aircraft. We've got another mission to go to, and we don't have enough co-pilots. That's what we do. I was afraid. I was scared. I had almost died, and that's when you realize you must go anyway, because the people on the ground are counting on you. That was one of my first flights as a section leader, and my wingman was my XO. And I could say if there was a flight that defined me initially in combat as a leader, not just a co-pilot, that would be it.
The squadron's standard for excellence has defined leadership skills for other branches of military too. Kyle Keyes Taylor was a UH-1N pilot in the Air Force, working toward becoming a combat rescue pilot. When consulting personnel regarding his next move, they suggested an exchange, flying Hueys with the Marines. He was just intrigued enough to give it a try. Kyle wasn't sure how HMLA-167 would welcome an Air Force guy showing up in blues, but true to form, the Warriors quickly brought him up to speed.
Well, I'll have to start with going to the rifle range. We were out there, and as every Marine knows, every Marine's a rifleman. So I had to do the rifle training. So we're out at one of the ranges out there. We're working with the M16, and I'm trying to target in at the 200-yard line. And the sun's just coming up because most rounds went downrange at sunrise. And this gunny came up and looked down at me. And the sun is just rising behind him, so you could sense this aura about him. I couldn't really see his face clearly, and he looked and he said, "Damn, Captain, you haven't touched one of them before, have you?" And he actually came over to my house that evening and helped me snap in and learn to use the weapon. And by the end of the week, I had finished my training and was a Marine Corps marksman.
His training didn't stop at marksmanship, and the Air Force quickly recognized that upon his return.
When I left the Marine Squadron after the 3 years, I went down to Special Operations, and I was working flying the MH-60 with SOF. And when I first arrived, they decided they were going to put me in tactics because they realized that was a gap that the squadron had, and the experience that I had from working with the Warriors here was able to be integrating that information right into the squadron and how they did business. And so I was able to take that and was not only promoted but was selected for school, which was a surprise for anybody at that time that had done an exchange program. So it really made an impact there. And as I moved on, later I was brought back to be the Squadron Operations Officer and Commander for the Air Force's only flying training squadron. So everything I learned in those formative years here as a young captain, I maintained with me throughout my career. And I would suggest that that time period made more of an impact on every undergraduate Air Force helicopter pilot that we've had since 2004.
With the foundation of such fine Marines, The future only looks bright for HMLA-167.
I want all the Marines to do great things, to remember the past and carry your traditions forward from the past. There's a lot of tradition in 167 from the time the unit stood up in Vietnam to where they are now. So I wish you all success, everything you do.
We have the history, and as I've always said, the history makes the organization, the camaraderie makes the person, and the forethought makes the future. And it's that camaraderie here that really binds someone and makes them who they are and how they're going to be in the future. And the way the history of our organization was formed, bringing people together in Vietnam, was able to take that and build the squadron and build the people and the camaraderie based on that heritage, and allows them to develop into future leaders.
When you walk around this squadron, you see the legacy everywhere. You walk out here and you see the legacy in the hallways. You can come in here, you can see the Silver Star that was won by one of our pilots in Grenada. You can walk up down the hallway and see all the prints. You can walk downstairs and see the history literally hanging from the rafters. It is a legacy of folks that care about each other. It's a legacy of folks who have fought alongside each other. And it's a legacy of people that want to keep making the squadron better.
The foundation here at the Warriors is very strong. That bedrock has been planted through the many generations of outstanding squadron members. And so I think we have everything, all the tools we need for success moving forward. And I believe the Warriors will continue to have guns will travel and continue setting the standard for many years to come.
I could reach out to any one of the Marines that I served with 167, haven't talked to them for 20 years, call them up and ask them just to give me a call or send them a message, and it's instantaneous. You can count on them.
We talk about family, and especially in this day and age, I think people are looking for that bond. But when you come here, you realize that it is a family. It's a group of people that genuinely care about each other, that hold each other accountable, will look out for one another, and by doing so, we will go out and look out for the Marines. And when we look out for the Marines, we're looking out for our neighbors, our families, and our country. And that's why we do it, even though it's much harder than anybody realizes, except those that do it. But it's a labor of love. That's why I love this place, because I don't ever think it will be anything more than that. And that's the best thing that it can be.
It's the people that make the legacy of this institution. It's not just in combat. You have guys like Wally Watkins that, sacrificed life and limb to pull J.P. Norman from a burning Hulk. He wasn't thinking about his wife and kids at that time. He put a lot on the line. So when I think about the future, it's the legacy of the people, and I think it's very bright. I believe it's very bright, and I'm not at all concerned, because it's just the culture of the Warriors. We instill, when you get here, it's not about you supporting the Marines on the ground, your brothers and sisters. It's about supporting each other. So when it comes to the future, I'm quite confident we're going to continue that legacy, and the future will take care of itself.
For family, for courage, for honor, and for country. Whether it was the Warriors that stood on Marble Mountain or the Warriors currently behind the red checkerboard, their goals have never changed. May it always be.